Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum. Welcome to First Chronicles, chapter 21, which there are 30 verses. Beginning in verse 1, we read here the devil versus Satan. And it says moved David versus provoked David. Verse 2, captains of the forces versus the rulers of the people. So these are military or armies versus non-military. Verse 3, and let the eyes of my Lord the King see it versus but my Adon the King. All are the servants of my Lord versus are they not all my Adon servants. Seek versus require. Actually, you know what? Let me rewind just so you can see where I was scanning there. Here it is. All are the servants of my Lord versus are they not all my Adon servants. Seek versus require. Significant difference. It says, do it not, lest it become a sin to Israel, versus why will he be a cause of trespass to Israel. Verse 5, sons of Judah versus Judah. Verse 6, painful versus abominable. And the footnote reads straightened or prevailed against or even pressed Joab. Verse 7, and there was evil in the sight of Hashem respecting this thing, versus and Elohim was displeased with this thing. Verse 8, remove versus do away. Which can also be translated as Passover or take. I have been exceedingly foolish versus I have done very foolishly. Verse 10, bring versus offer. There's an omission of for thyself. Actually, it does say choose thee. So it is pretty close. Verse 12, or that thou shouldest flee 3 months from the face of thine enemies, versus or 3 months, can't pronounce that really well, or 3 months to be destroyed before thy foes. So one is, he's fleeing, he's running away, technically not destroyed. So perhaps they're losing the battle and their enemies are pursuing them, but to be destroyed, that it's pretty clear, it's clear cut that they have been wiped out by their enemies. And then it says to destroy thee. So here it's more clear. It is, they are losing, they're being destroyed, versus overtake thee, which can also be translated as reach. And pestilence, so it says here the sword of Hashem and pestilence, so 2 different things perhaps. And in the Masoretic it says the sword of Hashem, even the pestilence, so it's equating the sword as the pestilence. Inheritance versus coasts. Verse 13, consider versus advise thyself. Actually, that is verse 12, isn't it? So it says here, consider what I shall answer to him versus advise thyself. So that is still verse 12. Verse 13, him, that is Hashem, that sent the message. That is still verse 12. What I shall answer to him that sent the message. So, in other words, what I shall answer to Hashem versus I shall bring again to him that sent me. So it means the same thing. However, the prophet in the Septuagint acknowledges the words do not come from himself, but he considers, recognizes the source of his words, which is Hashem. It is not simply just him being sent, and the words could possibly be his, although it's not as clear in the Masoretic that it's making the statement. Verse 13. They are very hard for me, even all the three, verses I am in a great strait, which can also mean a bind in our modern vernacular. The footnote, interestingly enough, reads, for the Greek, straight or narrow. So in all fairness to the Masoretic, it is a close translation. It's simply the translators making their own interpretation here as to how to read this, how it could be expressed. Verse 15, evil in both. However, the word evil can also be understood as injury. So Hashem repented for the injury that was caused or the calamity. Let it suffice thee. Hashem speaking to the angel versus it is enough. Verse 17, I am the guilty one. David admitting, confessing, I have greatly sinned, versus even I it is that have sinned and done evil indeed. So I think it just, you can feel David's, the weight of his guilt. You can feel his contriteness a lot more in the Septuagint, in my opinion, just the way it is expressed. Continuing on, it says, for destruction. Let me read the full sentence here. O Adon Elohim, let thy hand be upon me and upon my father's house, and not on thy people for destruction, O Adon. Verses, just fast forward, but not on thy people that they should be plagued. So we can see the distinction. Being plagued is simply, well, what does it mean? Does it mean being destroyed? Or is it being plagued with an illness? So it could mean a pestilence, could mean slaughter, could mean being smitten, can mean many things. Calamity even. Verse 18, told versus commanded. Significant difference in verse 20. It reads, Arona turned and saw the king, versus Ornan turned back and saw the angel. So how is he seeing an angel? It's a supernatural phenomena. It only mentions that David could see the angel, not that everyone in Israel could see the angel. And that's not what the narrative reads in the Septuagint anyway. And it reads here, and he hid himself and his 4 sons with him. So this seems to be talking about Ornan or Arona hiding perhaps with King David. That's one possibility, or simply hiding with his 4 sons with him, meaning Arona. In the Masoretic, it's clearer that it is only Ornan, aka Arona, hiding with his 4 sons. I was thinking, could this be King David hiding with his 4 sons? But there's no mention of King David and 4 sons that he would have to protect. Doesn't make any sense. Verse 22. Give it me for its worth in money. Versus, thou shalt grant me, thou shalt grant it me for the full price. So it's one thing to acquire a good or a property or whatever it is for what it is worth, the true value, versus give it me for the full price, which could lead to taking advantage of someone else, depending on what depending on what the seller perceives as, okay, this is the full price. I'll give you the full maximum amount that I could charge you, versus what is it worth. Those are 2 different things. The plague shall cease versus the plague may be stayed. So it could be remaining, it could simply stop, but then to resume at another time. Cease means it's completely stopped altogether. It's not going to resume. Verse 23. It's interesting that the plow is made of wood, but threshing instruments are usually not made of wood. When I think of threshing, I think of a scythe. I think of steel or iron. Thresher. You think of pitchforks perhaps even. But no, this is a plow which is made of wood. But there are parts of the plow that could be made of steel and iron, but not 100% of it is made of steel or iron. Most of it is made of wood. Verse 24, for its worth in money, continuing this this theme of recognizing the value of the property, not trying to extort or charge more than what it is actually worth. So let's just look at this contrast one more time. For its worth in money versus for the full price. There's an omission of to Hashem. I will not take thy property for Hashem. Actually, no, that's not the omission. It's right here. A whole burnt offering to Hashem. So it's not simply a burnt offering to nobody. It is to Hashem specifically. Verse 26, there's an omission of and it, talking about the fire from heaven, consumed the whole burnt offering. Similar to the story of, or the account of Elijah and the prophets, the false prophets, the 800 prophets. Moving on to verse 29. And the tabernacle versus for the tabernacle. So one is saying this is why David sacrificed there, because the tabernacle was at Gibeon. And the tabernacle seems to be simply adding a detail rather than providing a rationale as to why David did what he did. Time versus season. Verse 30, for he hasted not, referring to David, he hasted not, he didn't hurry. Why? Because of the sword of the angel of Hashem. Versus, for he was afraid. So David was afraid because of the sword. So in any case, David could not go inquire before the altar or before the tabernacle. Could not go before the tabernacle to inquire of Elohim, for he did not hurry to do so, because again, that's far away in Gibeon. He didn't hurry to do that because of the sword of the angel. So rather, he had to, I guess, adjust and adapt to the situation, and he perceived that it was to be done at the threshing floor of Araunah where the angel was standing. So he just had that either inspiration or he could see that this is the place that was chosen by Hashem. And there was much significance with this place. And there are different ideas and opinions of this same location being perhaps the original location of the Garden of Eden. Anyway, that's another topic for another video. So that's all for this chapter. Thank you very much for your time. Until next time, I bid you all Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum, Erini Mazisu, Pax Vobiscum. Peace be unto you, and Maranatha.